Their faces are very familiar as they have embodied some of our favorite characters, but we don't really know the people. The brightest stars in Hollywood often earn the biggest paychecks, and some of them lead lives filled with luxury, but some don't. It's pretty easy to forget that these actors are just that, actors. Away from the limelight, some of them lead pretty regular lives. In this video, we're taking a look at some real people with real thoughts, feelings, fears, and failures. We're taking a closer look at some of the simpler lifestyles among television royalty. So for all this and more, stay tuned here at Wonderlane. Let's get it started with Zoe Deschanel. Most of us know her as Jessica Day from New Girl, but she's starred in movies such as 500 Days of Summer, Elf, and Yes Man. She's amassed a fortune of roughly $25 million, but she lives a fairly modest life. She doesn't live in a mansion in Beverly Hills along with some of her wealthy co-workers. Instead, she was drawn to a more affordable neighborhood in Los Angeles. She lives in a quaint little home in Manhattan Beach that ran her a little under $1 million. I know, that's still a lot of money, but what really stands out here are some of her monthly expenses, which she had to make public due to some divorce proceedings. Deschanel spent no more than $3,000 a month on everyday items. She spends $1,000 on groceries and weekly shopping, $300 on her phone bill, $800 on repairs, and $900 on ventures. According to these court documents, she didn't use her credit cards at all. And just to reiterate, she has $25 million in assets. So Deschanel is frugal, but she ain't stingy. She does not indulge in luxury items for herself, but she makes it a habit to financially support a good cause every month. She also makes some pretty smart investments in the stock market and in real estate. So let's move on to Angus T. Jones, aka Jake Harper from 2.5 Men. The now 20-something-year-old actor spent his entire childhood on the set of the classic sitcom. He made $300,000 per episode and is currently rocking a net worth of $15 million. Just imagine being that young and that rich, with a whole career still ahead of you. Possibilities are endless, right? Well, Angus kind of opted out of the whole rich, famous young superstar deal. Instead, he moved to Colorado and joined a religious group called the Forerunner Chronicles. He also enrolled in college, where he's currently studying Jewish history. Jones has said that he enjoys his life very much, because at school, and especially in the church, he's not perceived as a celebrity, but rather as just a normal person. Maybe his church friends just weren't big into TV, or maybe it has something to do with the fact that his appearance has drastically changed since he was America's favorite little chubby kid on 2.5 Men. Either way, he enjoys being able to fly under the radar just a bit, and we're happy for him. He did become a bit of a religious radical, and he denounced 2.5 Men, calling it immoral filth. But he has since cooled off just a bit, and he took a few steps back from some of the religious groups to work on a new plan for an entertainment company specializing in concerts. Let's continue with Mayam Bialik, the 44-year-old actress most commonly known for her role as Dr. Amy Farrah Fowler in The Big Bang Theory, has earned as much as $500,000 per episode, and this eventually added up to her fortune of $25 million. Bialik was an actress as a child, but she decided to study medicine after her school years. And study medicine she did. She actually went on to earn a PhD in neuroscience. It seems, however, that Bialik just couldn't stay away from the spotlight, though, as she returned to acting to work on The Big Bang Theory. In spite of her tremendous wealth, Mayam Bialik lives very humbly. She owns a small brick house that's over 100 years old. On her YouTube channel, she has presented a day in her life at home, which she spends together with her 2 sons. Since she's separated from her husband, she's raising the children alone. No nannies or anything like that, although obviously she could afford it. She also regularly uses public transportation. She does have her own car, but it's not a Rolls Royce or a Mercedes or anything flashy like that. Just a good old Toyota minivan. Bialik and her sons use the van for road trips, which is their favorite way to vacation. And they often stop at animal sanctuaries and zoos, as Mayam is a huge animal lover. Bialik also gives scientific lectures and tries to get girls in particular more excited about science courses at school. Let's move right along to Norman Reedus, one of the lead actors from the hit series The Walking Dead. He plays Daryl Dixon, a character written especially for him, and not unlike his character in the show, Dixon is a bit of a daredevil in real life. Unlike some of his co-stars, he is not attracted to the life of luxury that he may be able to afford. He's very much drawn to nature. He owns several motorcycles and a pickup truck, and on the surface, he's really just a good old boy. But beneath that surface, he's actually a renowned artist. His paintings and sculptures are featured in exhibits and galleries all over the world. He's worth about $18 million, but Reedus is not a very flashy guy. He flies economy class and lives in an ordinary house in the country. He recently started dating actress Diane Kruger and has a daughter of his own, so much of his free time these days revolves around raising a family. Let's move on to another actor from The Big Bang Theory, Kevin Sussman. He played Stuart, the comic book shop owner, in the popular sitcom, and even though he was more of a supporting character, he earned about $50,000 per episode. Sussman became a multi-millionaire as a result of the show, but despite his estimated fortune of over $3 million, the actor lives an exceptionally minimalist lifestyle. He does not own a mansion, but instead lives in a small house near LA. Even when he's out and about, he doesn't use a car or even a cab. He rides the bus or takes the subway. He explained in an interview that the success of the show has led him to being recognized by folks in public, but he says it doesn't bother him too much. So he enjoys living his life like a normal person, but one thing the actor does like to spend a lot of money on though is comic books, and he frequents various conventions. Sussman also spends a lot of time in comic book stores, which is why many of his acquaintances say that he's actually very much like his character in The Big Bang Theory. His love life, however, is not as desperate as that of the comic book salesman Stuart. Sussman had a previous relationship with actress and model Whitley Rice, and is currently happily engaged again. Now let's move on to Maisie Williams. She played the role of Arya Stark in Game of Thrones for 8 years and thus spent a large part of her youth on the set of the series. The 22-year-old Brit earned up to $150,000 per episode and currently has a net worth of $6 million. In addition, Maisie has also developed the app Daisy, a kind of social network for influencers, which already has 100,000 members, and her company is valued in 7 figures. But when you look at Maisie Williams' private lifestyle, it's hardly apparent that she has such vast wealth. She really only uses her money to help other people, if at all. Maisie gave part of her fortune to her mother, who had some long-standing financial problems, and she was able to retire, and she now supports her daughter as a personal assistant. Maisie also financially supports her siblings and makes frequent donations to animal shelters. Williams spends very little on herself, and she rents a very modern and minimalist city apartment. One opportunity afforded to her by her acting career that she does take advantage of, though, is travel, and her favorite destinations are Tokyo, New York, Paris, and other famous international cities. Speaking of Game of Thrones cast members, let's take a look at Nikolaj Costa Waldo. He played the role of Jaime Lannister in the fantasy series, and he garnered worldwide fame. He earned over $500,000 per episode, and he now has a fortune of $16 million. However, despite his great fortune, the Danish-born actor, not unlike his cohorts on this list, lives very modestly. Instead of a lavish estate, Costa Waldo lives in a fairly minimalist house. It includes a small kitchen, a simple bedroom, and a narrow garden area. Costa Waldo explained in an interview that there was a time in which he always had too many unnecessary things in his apartment, and so he decided to leave only the essentials in his house. He also just doesn't really care much about material things like expensive clothes anyway, and he really just puts on whatever he finds in the morning. The multimillionaire is not attracted to fancy cars either. He drives a cost and fuel-efficient electric vehicle in order to reduce his carbon footprint. Nikolaj Costa Waldo describes his philosophy of life as typically Danish. He tries to stay modest, and he tries not to expect too much from life. This way, when much is given, he's always pleasantly surprised. And that's going to do it for our video on some of the more modest lifestyles of Hollywood elites. What's your philosophy as it pertains to life and wealth? Do you align with these folks, or would you live the high life? Be sure to let us know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button and subscribe to Wonderlane for new videos like this every week.